The open ocean. It's a world of its own, covering more than 70% of our planet. It's vast, it's powerful, it is full of secrets. For centuries, sailors have returned to port with stories that defy explanation. Tales of sea monsters, lost cities, phantom vessels that sail the waves long after they should have been lost to the depths. These aren't just your average campfire stories. They are legends born from the cold, isolating reality of being miles from shore, surrounded by nothing but water and sky. These are the stories of ghost ships, and they represent some of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the maritime world. The idea of a ghost ship sends a shiver down the spine. Imagine it. A vessel appearing out of the mist, fully intact, sails billowing in a wind that isn't there. No crew on deck, no lights in the cabins, just an eerie silence as it glides past. These ships, like the legendary Flying Dutchman, are said to be doomed to sail the seas for eternity. But are they just myths? Or is there something more to these tales? In an age of satellites and GPS, you'd think these mysteries would be solved, yet the sightings continue. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone is there with a camera. Our first stop takes us to the frigid, unforgiving waters of the Arctic. This is the story of the SS Baychimo, a 1,322-ton steel-hulled cargo steamer and one of the 20th century's most famous ghost ships. Launched in 1914, owned by the Hudson's Bay Company, trading for furs with Inuit settlements, Alaska, trading for furs with Inuit settlements, Canada, built to withstand the harsh conditions of the North. In 1931, the Arctic decided to claim her. An early winter caught the ship off guard. She became trapped in pack ice. Crew abandoned her on October 1, 1931, and trekked across the ice to Barrow, Alaska. Weeks later, some crew returned and the vessel had vanished, presumed sunk in a blizzard. But the Baychimo had broken free and begun a solitary journey. For the next 4 decades, she was spotted drifting through Arctic waters. Inuit hunters saw it, explorers reported it. In 1933, prospectors boarded and found the ship structurally sound. They were trapped by bad weather for 10 days. When the storm cleared, the ship was gone. Last confirmed sighting, 1969, found trapped in the Beaufort Sea by a group of Inuit. In 2006, Alaska launched a search project, but the ship hasn't been located. Photographs from its wandering show a rusted, lonely hulk. Did it finally sink, or is it still out there, waiting to be discovered once more? This next story is one of the most disturbing maritime mysteries on record, a tale straight out of a horror film. It involves a Dutch freighter called the SS Ourang Medan. The name translates to Man from Medan, a city in Indonesia. The story begins in the summer of 1947 or 1948. The exact date is fuzzy, when ships in the Strait of Malacca picked up a terrifying SOS message. The distress call was frantic and disjointed. It began with, "All officers including captain are dead, lying in chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole crew dead." This was followed by a burst of indecipherable Morse code and then a final chilling message, "I die." An American merchant ship, the Silver Star, was nearby and diverted its course to investigate. When they located the Ourang Medan, they found a ship that was eerily silent. It was floating, seemingly undamaged, but there was no sign of life. After hailing the ship with no response, the captain of the Silver Star assembled a boarding party. What they found on board was the stuff of nightmares. The deck was littered with the bodies of the Dutch crew, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror, their eyes were wide open, their arms outstretched, as if fending off an unseen attacker. The ship's dog was also found dead, its teeth bared in a final, desperate snarl. Even the ship's captain was found lifeless on the bridge, and the radio operator was slumped over his equipment, his hands still on the Morse code key. Let's fast forward to a more modern mystery. This is the story of the Kaz 2, a 10-meter catamaran found drifting off Queensland, April 18, 2007. The yacht belonged to Derek Batten and his friend Peter Tunstead and James Tunstead. They'd set sail for northern Australia. The yacht was spotted by a helicopter, its sail luffing in the wind. A maritime patrol vessel was sent to investigate. The boarding party stepped aboard. The vessel looked like it had been abandoned moments before the engine was running and a laptop was powered on. The table was set for a meal, food laid out, cutlery, wallets were still on board, phones were still on board, GPS was still on board. They recovered video footage from a camera found on board, and the recording ends. We're going back in time again, to the treacherous waters off North Carolina known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. This is where on January 31, 1921, one of America's most enduring maritime mysteries began. A surfman at the Cape Hatteras Coast Guard station spotted a large, five-masted schooner stranded on the infamous Diamond Shoals. The ship was the Carroll A. Deering. It was battered by the waves, its sails were torn, and it was clearly in distress. But heavy seas made it impossible for the Coast Guard to reach the vessel for several days. When rescuers were finally able to board the ghost ship on February 4th, they were met with an eerie scene. The ship was completely deserted. The ship's log was gone, along with the crew's personal effects and the two lifeboats. The only living thing they found was a six-toed cat. On the galley table, food was laid out, as if in preparation for a meal that was never eaten. There were no signs of violence or struggle, but the ship's navigational equipment, chronometer and sextant, were missing. The steering equipment was smashed, and the ship's anchors were missing. The Deering had been on a return voyage from Rio de Janeiro, carrying a cargo of coal. The last confirmed contact with the ship was on January 28th, when it hailed a lightship off Cape Lookout. The lightship keeper reported that a man with a foreign accent told him the ship had lost its anchors in a storm. This was strange because the captain and first mate were both American. Our final story is less about physical evidence and more about a legend so powerful it seems to manifest itself every 50 years. This is the tale of the Lady Lovibond, a schooner said to haunt the Goodwin Sands, a treacherous stretch of sandbanks off the coast of Kent, England. The legend begins on February 13, 1748. The ship's captain, Simon Peel, had just gotten married and was taking his new bride, Annetta, on a celebratory cruise. This was considered bad luck. The ship's first mate was also in love with Annetta. Consumed by a jealous rage, he deliberately steered the ship onto the Goodwin Sands, wrecking the vessel and killing everyone on board. The story goes that the Lady Lovibond is cursed to reappear every 50 years on the anniversary of its wrecking, February 13th. The first reported sighting was in 1798, 50 years later, when the captains of two different ships reported seeing a three-masted schooner sail directly towards the sands and vanish. In 1848, local fishermen saw the phantom schooner wreck in the exact same spot, and even sent out lifeboats to rescue the crew, only to find nothing. Sightings continued in 1898, and the most famous sighting occurred on February 13, 1948. Captain W.R. Bull Preswick reported seeing a green glow emanating from the sands which resolved into the shape of a three-masted schooner. Some claim to have photographed a hazy, ship-like form in the mist. Paranormal enthusiasts gathered in 1998. While no definitive sighting was confirmed, many reported strange lights and eerie feelings. Skeptics argue atmosphere and mirage explain the sightings. With stories this incredible, it's easy to get swept away by the legend. That's why it's our job as investigators to anchor ourselves to the facts. Let's take a look at the Baychimo. A ship was trapped in ice, abandoned by its crew, spent nearly 4 decades drifting through the Arctic. Numerous sightings are well documented. The photographs, though grainy, are real. The folklore isn't about ghosts on the deck, but about the ship itself having a ghostly life of its own. Now let's turn to the SS Ourang Medan. This case is almost pure folklore. There are no official shipping records for a vessel of that name, no entry in Lloyd's shipping register. The tale seems to originate from articles in a Dutch-Indonesian newspaper in the late 1940s, picked up later in the US. A chilling but unverifiable account. The CAS 2 is the opposite. It's grounded entirely in modern, verifiable fact. We have the yacht, we have the video camera, we have the GPS data, we have everything except the crew. The facts paint a clear picture of a normal day at sea that went horribly wrong. The folklore comes from our need to fill in the blanks. Finally, the Carroll A. Deering. Here, fact and folklore are tightly interwoven. The US government's investigation is a matter of public record. The evidence, smashed navigation equipment and missing logbooks, is factual, but the why remains the mystery. This is a case where the facts create the mystery rather than solving it. On one hand, we have logical, scientific explanations. On the other, tales that refuse to be fully explained. These are the details that keep the door to the unknown slightly ajar. These are the details that fuel the legends. So what are we really looking at with these stories? Are these genuine paranormal encounters? Or can we explain them away with science and logic? A phenomenon known as a fata morgana is a complex superior mirage that can make objects on the horizon appear distorted, elongated, or floating in the air. A distant ship could easily be transformed by the atmosphere into what looks like a ghostly galleon. Even a bank of sea ice could be transformed into a phantom shape. Think about the conditions at sea: fog, mist, changing light. The ocean and the atmosphere can play some incredible tricks on the human eye. It's the perfect environment for misinterpretation. A distant fishing boat's lights through thick fog could become the eerie glow of a phantom vessel. The sound of the wind in the rigging could be mistaken for ghostly whispers. Our brains are hardwired to see patterns and find meaning. Some cases, like the Baychimo, are less supernatural and more a testament to currents, structure, and luck. The cause too points to a tragic but entirely human accident. The chilling part is how quickly a perfect day can turn deadly, and how quickly the ocean can erase any trace of a mistake. The terror-stricken faces reported in some accounts, if true, don't fit neatly into our scientific models. Was it a leak of hazardous chemical cargo that asphyxiated the crew? While science explains much, there are nagging details that keep the door to the unknown slightly ajar. We've sailed through some of the most chilling and perplexing ghost ship stories ever recorded. From the icy solitude of the Arctic with the Baychimo to the terrifying silence of the Ourang Medan, each tale presents a unique puzzle. We've seen the grainy photographs, looked at the final video footage, and sifted through the historical accounts. A single, inexplicable event can spawn a legend that lasts for centuries. Mirages, freak waves, human error, the simple, brutal power of the ocean. These forces can account for many of the mysteries we've explored. A drifting ship is not necessarily a haunted one, and a missing crew does not automatically point to a paranormal event, but on the other hand, there are the elements that don't quite fit. Eerie coincidences and sheer terror described by witnesses. Can we be so certain we understand all the forces at play in our world? The ocean is the last great frontier on our planet, a place where mysteries can still endure, hidden beneath the waves or shrouded in the fog. Ultimately, the question comes down to what you choose to believe. The evidence is before you, the stories have been told. Now, the verdict is yours. As for me, I think it's time to launch an expedition.